Okay, let's be real. If you're an endurance athlete, this is the question, isn't it? The one that has you endlessly scrolling through forums at midnight, second guessing every single workout. Is there really one best way to train to get faster? Well, today, we're finally going to get some answers. For the last few years, one training model has just completely dominated the conversation: polarized training, right? It's been talked about like it's the secret sauce the pros use, this magic bullet that's going to unlock all your potential. But is the hype actually real? Well, a groundbreaking new scientific review, a huge network meta-analysis, just came out in the journal Sports Medicine, and it's designed to cut right through all that noise. It pulls together data from more than a dozen different studies to get to the truth. So let's dive in. First things first, we gotta know who the main players are in this debate. We're talking about different training intensity distributions, or TIDs. It's really just a fancy way of saying, how do you split up your training time between easy, medium, and hard? So first up, we've got the reigning champ, polarized training. The easiest way to think about it is like a U shape. You spend a ton of your time, like the vast majority, going super easy. Think conversational pace. And then you have a small but really potent amount of time going all out super hard. The absolute key here is that you actively avoid that middle, kind of hard gray zone. Next up, we've got the pyramidal model. And just like the name suggests, it's shaped like a pyramid. You still build on this huge base of easy Zone 1 training, but then you start to layer in a bit more of that medium intensity tempo work in Zone 2, and then you top it all off with just the smallest amount of high intensity work at the very peak. And finally, there's the threshold model. Now, this approach kind of flips the whole thing on its head. It makes that middle zone, that challenging but sustainable threshold pace, the main event. That's where you spend most of your time, with a lot less focus on the super easy or the super hard stuff. You know, seeing the numbers laid out side by side like this makes it all crystal clear. Look at polarized. About 80% of your time is easy, with almost nothing in that middle zone too. Then you have pyramidal, which still has a huge easy base, but layers in more of zone 2 and zone 3. And then threshold just turns it all upside down, with about half of all training time spent right in that tough middle zone. These are just fundamentally different ways of thinking about training. So, with our contenders lined up, the scientists got to work. They crunched all the numbers from all the studies to see which approach actually delivers the goods. And honestly, the verdict probably isn't what you're expecting. And listen, this was no small-time analysis. We're talking about a whopping 348 dedicated athletes, runners, cyclists, rowers, you name it, all pulled together from 13 different high-quality studies. That is a seriously powerful amount of data. All right, this is it, the moment of truth. After looking at all the improvements in things like VO2Max and time trial speed, which model reigns supreme? Which one is the king? And the answer is, drumroll please, none of them. Yep, you heard that right. When you lump all 348 athletes into one big group, there was no clear winner. Polarized wasn't better. Pyramidal wasn't better. Threshold wasn't better. So that big myth of one single best way to train, it's busted. But, and this is a huge but, that is not the end of the story. Because this is where things get really interesting. See, the researchers didn't just stop there. They dug a layer deeper, and they asked a brilliant question. What happens if we split these athletes up based on their performance level? And folks, this is the finding that changes absolutely everything. So they created two distinct groups. On one side, you have recreational athletes. These are your really dedicated enthusiasts, your serious club runners and cyclists. And on the other, you've got competitive athletes. We're talking university, state, even national level competitors. Now look at the critical difference here, their baseline fitness. The competitive group had a way higher average VO2Max to start with. And boom, this chart illustrates the killer insight. When they analyzed these two groups separately, a really clear pattern popped out. For those already highly trained competitive athletes, the polarized model did actually seem to give them a better boost. But for the recreational athletes, it was the pyramidal model that was more effective. Two totally different groups of athletes, two totally different best answers. I mean, the study authors themselves spell it out perfectly right here in their conclusion. It seems like the best training plan really depends on your current performance level. If you're a higher level athlete, you might get more out of a polarized plan. But if you're a recreational athlete, you'll probably get more bang for your buck with a pyramidal structure. Okay, so we've busted a big myth, and we've uncovered a much more interesting, nuanced truth. But what does this actually mean for you and your training log? How do you apply all this stuff? Right, let's break it down. Takeaway number one, and it's the most important. Stop searching for that one magic bullet plan. It just doesn't exist. Instead, the science shows us that your current fitness level is the real key. If you're a highly competitive athlete trying to break through a plateau, a polarized approach seems like a really smart bet. But for most of us, for dedicated recreational athletes, the pyramidal approach is probably going to give you the biggest gains. The bottom line is clear. It's about personalizing your plan based on real evidence, not just blindly following the latest trend. And that's really where this all leaves us. We started this whole journey by asking, what's the best training plan? It turns out that was the wrong question all along. This new science gives us the power to ask a much, much smarter one. Based on who I am as an athlete, right here, right now, what's the best training plan for me?